Hi, everybody. Welcome to Square Off.
Liz, Toronto Maple Leafs captain Dion Phaneuf, his wife Alicia Cuthbert, and his teammate Joffrey Lupul are thinking about suing TSN after a false and malicious tweet was aired by accident. Now, I think launching a lawsuit is going a little bit too far. They got their on-air apology, and they should move on.
Well, Mark, you know, they're not suing because they need more money. I think that they're trying to make a point, and that is to say that a big broadcaster like TSN can't be making mistakes like that. And when they do, you know what? There's consequences. So they need to feel it in their wallet, and I think a lawsuit will accomplish that. We're going to debate this later on Square Off.
When someone is arrested and charged, we learn of their name and the alleged offenses through the media and the police. And in some cases, even a photo of the alleged suspect is also released to the public.
But what happens when that person is found not guilty? How often do you get the notification that the person who was once thought to have committed a crime is actually not responsible? Well, by the time the alleged suspect is proven to be innocent, his or her name has been dragged through the mud, and public opinion has already taken its course.
If the police are responsible for charging a person, do they also not have an obligation to clear that person's name if they're found not guilty? Let's bring in criminal lawyer Jeff Manishen, who also has experience working as a Crown attorney. So, Jeff, if you were charged with a crime that you didn't commit and were found not guilty, would you expect authorities to clear your name and your reputation?
I'd certainly like to see that, but no, I wouldn't expect that. I think they take the position. We proceeded with the charges because we felt they were worthwhile to pursue. The media chose to report because we have an open system. And the question of you're found not guilty, there's no need from the police standpoint to have to publicize that. And the media may well have moved on. There's no press conference to announce the acquittal or withdrawal of charges.
Jeff, knowing the damage that even a simple accusation can do, what would the reasoning be behind publishing information about people that are accused of things well before they're actually convicted?
Well, I think the concept that we hear, Liz, is this: the courts are an open process. It's a fundamental principle within our justice system that the public have the right to be able to be aware of what goes on within the courtroom. And so it's extended into the concept that people should know if someone is charged with an offense, although it's recognized they're presumed innocent. The fact of the charge has some measure of significance. If one attended court, they'd be aware of it. I'd go further and say this: if you didn't have publication of the individual's name for a matter that's before the court, imagine news coverage on trials where you don't know the name of the accused. So I think that that's a real challenge right now. From a public interest standpoint, they'd say we want to know who's been charged. We want to know what matters are before the court. From an accused standpoint, he'd say I'm presumed innocent. Why do I need any publicity at all?
All right, so you get a phone call from someone who says, Mr. Manishen, I've been charged with a crime. I didn't commit this. It's a case of mistaken identity. They got it all wrong, and my name's going to go out there. What do you say to that person? What recourse, if any, do they have to clear their name? I'm sure everyone who contacts you says they're innocent, but what if they are innocent? Or how about innocent versus not guilty? Is there a distinction there?
Well, let's try it this way, Mark. I had a situation, it's a true story, of an individual whom I knew socially, and this person got charged with some serious criminal offenses. The matter got a ton of publicity. Newspaper, TV, including this station. And I met with him, and he was just beside himself because immediately he lost his job. There were volunteer programs and activities he was involved in. They didn't want him anymore. There was a ton of stress in his family. Friends were abandoning him right, left, and center. I talked with him. From what I gathered in terms of the nature of the evidence they had against him, it was really slim. As things unfolded, a few months later, the charges were withdrawn. Now, that's pretty much as good of indication as any, Mark. We aren't talking about not proven. They withdrew the charges, that there was no apparent basis, reasonable prospect of conviction.
Did he get his job back? Did people go back on his side?
Nope, a lot of people didn't. This guy went through stress. It's almost like he's got post-traumatic stress disorder. The doorbell will ring, and he's panicked that it's the police again. And what kind of coverage did the withdrawal get? Back page of a newspaper, and that's about the extent of it. And he was even worried about that, and because it connected the charges again, and people say, oh, well, there's smoke, there's fire. So there wasn't a great measure of satisfaction by him when the charges were withdrawn, and there was a lot he lost he will never get back.
So is there anything someone can do? Because, yeah, a whole life can be destroyed. God forbid it was like a mistake to charge the person in the first place. It sounds like it might even have been with the person you knew. What's the recourse? Because it just doesn't seem fair.
And it isn't. Liz, it isn't. And I will take it this way. A case that actually came out of Hamilton, Hill against the Hamilton Police Service, the Supreme Court of Canada determined there is a tort of negligent investigation, that the police owe the person a duty of care. The standard is that of a reasonable officer to investigate fully and impartially, And if the police are found to have been negligent in the way in which they investigated and charged somebody, there is a potential recourse for civil damages. As this case turned out, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada, they said, yes, the tort exists, but for you, sir, we don't feel your case has been made out. Think of it. You have to potentially pay for your lawyer, and if you lose, the lawyer for the other side to sue. Who knows what you're going to get in the way of damages, and there may be publicity given to your lawsuit. How much farther ahead are you? So there's not a great deal of satisfactory compensation even through the civil process.
Right. Jeff, there was a case several years ago, a famous children's performer charged with some pretty serious offenses, eventually exonerated on all charges. But I think that, and I think back to it, is that I think a lot of people still, like you say, that where there's smoke, there's fire. And I don't know what kind of financial hardship this caused this particular gentleman, but I remember when the story originally came out, everyone, of course, quick to judge. Oh, yeah, not going to buy his records anymore, not going to go see his shows anymore. And not just recourse, but how does someone, like, how do you go back to people and say, look, it was all a mistake? How can you ever get that back and have someone look at you pretending that they never heard that you were charged, that they never read the papers, they never watched television? How can you possibly get that back? That must be so difficult for an individual.
Certainly, and I remember the case you're talking about. He was somebody that I think my kids enjoyed seeing in concert and got records from. And certainly, it's, you say, how do you unscramble an egg? You'd like the public, and when I come on to talk about cases that are before the court, I try and emphasize the presumption of innocence, and it's not simply a legal concept. At least I'd like it to be considered more than that. When anybody in the public reads about somebody being charged, how about starting with the idea of, until otherwise is proven, I'm going to presume the person is innocent. I'm prepared to keep an open mind, and in fact, more than that, not say I don't know one way or the other. I will start by presuming they are innocent. There is no way to be able to correct a situation like that. The person will always be stigmatized. So what does it do as far as I'm concerned? It puts a strong onus on the police not to give lip service to the concept of being responsible as investigators. And I do some teaching and instructing for police on those sorts of issues. You'd like to feel that they will use a full measure of a duty of care and not charge automatically. The default isn't charge. And if they have a case that isn't urgent, and they have someone who is likely to get a fair amount of coverage in the community, they ought to take the time to feel they really have a case. You shouldn't have a situation where somebody's charged, and then a few months later, a prosecutor reviews and says there's no basis for it. It should have been done up front. That's what they do in B.C. Crowns will review the case before the person's ever charged.
Right.
So maybe we need to see that.
Yeah, it's another set of eyes. And I want to ask you before you have to go about person of interest, you know, something that we hear more about now. No, but when the police say there's a person of interest that we want to, this is who it is, we're looking for them, I always think, why? What did they do? You know, are they in the same category? And is that something that goes on your record?
A person of interest wouldn't. They use it as a phrase, Liz, from the standpoint of an investigation. They may have somebody who they believe to be a witness, and that's how they're characterizing it. They may have somebody who may be approaching the category of suspect, but they may not have enough yet. Certainly not enough to characterize the person as an accused. So what do? They've created this additional status level or a quality character. They characterize it as person of interest.
But they don't name that person.
No, that's right. And they will say it's more than a witness and less than a suspect, and they could be on the path potentially.
I think I've heard people named.
Yeah. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they might, if they have, for example, video footage and they want to speak to somebody. But when you hear the phrase person of interest, you have to feel that the police are certainly focusing their investigation on this individual.
That's criminal lawyer Jeff Manishen. We always learn a lot when we have you on the show. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us today.
Always a pleasure. Nice seeing you both.
When we come back, you will not believe how some people are treating their pets. They're wonderful, cute little pets in this really cold weather.
Yeah, thanks to vigilant neighbors, though, these vulnerable animals are being saved. Find out more next on Square Off.